Hey guys, Manga here with a new video on how to draw hands and how to construct them from scratch. So here you see we're going to be drawing the hand, and I'm just, I see some people where they draw the hand, and that line, that horizontal lines kind of indicate where the fingers are going to pop out of. This is a very robotic, boxy hand. Notice that you're drawing a hand, you're drawing a human being, so everything's a little more organic than that. And then the fingers, they don't just go from our ascending order to descending order. It's kind of all messed up, so you need to keep in mind keep all these things in mind, where, for instance, just real quick, the middle finger being the tallest finger in general. Just usually for people on average, that's the tallest finger. And the lines are never that straight. It's always curved, and I'll go into that in more detail as we go on. So you have this curved line. It usually actually has its peak where the middle finger is going to come out of. Again, we're dealing in curves, and you see me, I have that line there that's just the difference between, say, the index finger, distance between the index finger and where the thumb is going to come out of. And then we have that line there. Have all these, so far I've just been dealing with curves. Now I'm showing you guys where the fingers are going to pop out of. And it's not all one straight line, like I said, it's all curved. So when they pop out, they're popping out in different directions. And even when you put your fingers together, right, it still kind of gives off that same principle. Keep in mind that the middle finger is the tallest one. I already drew the index, the middle finger, drawing the one closest to the pinky, which would be the smallest one, having a little curve at the tip. And this is just a basic understanding, because one of the best ways to understand how to draw hands is to understand the hand, at least from a basic structural standpoint, where the bones are, where the joints are, where the knuckles are, where there is flesh for like a little drumstick looking thing. I'll talk about that even further. But knowing where everything goes. And now put in the thumb, which is the fattest finger, the pinky being the smallest one. The thumb and the pinky, when just on mere height alone, it's arguable which one is the taller one. If let's say you cut them off, weird, but I'll leave that to people are different. So sometimes it's not an exact science, and sometimes you would notice that if you're drawing from an actual illustration or a still life, that decision is made for you already. Whether that person, say you're drawing a person's hand, whether that person's thumb is taller than the pinky on mere height. But you wouldn't really be able to tell because they're not on the same level anyway, so it doesn't matter as much. So the pinky being the smallest one, the index and the finger closest to the pinky, which one's taller? It depends. Like I said, people are different. It depends on the person, it depends on a lot of things. So it's not an exact science. There's going to put in that curve because it doesn't just, the hand is a whole lot more organic than we're letting off in this first illustration. This is just to let you know how the hand is, how it works, and where the joints are. So here you can see in the fingers, except for the thumb, there are two places where the fingers bend. And then for the thumb, it bends in only one place, not including where it bends at the knuckles. Again, these are curved lines, right? You're keeping things organic. You don't want to, nothing is exactly straight unless that's the style you're going for. And I have the lines curved like a U because these fingers are relaxed, so therefore they're bending a little bit and bending towards you, so you have like a U where the joints are. It would have been an N if they were bending away. So if we were looking at this hand from behind it, then maybe I would have put it would have been an N type thing, just letting you know what direction it bends. And then that's where the arms connect, and you have the wrist and the tendons and all that good stuff. They're not all the same height, they're not straight unless it's a stylistic choice you're making. So the hand is, in this drawing, is relaxed, and when the hand is relaxed, it's not just straight. In fact, if it is completely straight, then it's not relaxed. When it's relaxed, it does bend a little bit. So that's what we have here, just a regular relaxed hand. And just to keep in mind, we want to understand the structure, how it bends. It doesn't all bend the same angle or bend the same way or bend in the same direction. A quick example would be seeing how the thumb bends in the other way. So these are things to keep in mind. So I'm going to draw another hand here real quick. I already did the shape. The more you do this, the more you get to skip the steps. But the more you understand the hand, the more you get to skip the steps. As long as you understand the hand, you'll be able to, at some point, by the end of this video, you'll be able to draw it in any way you want. And I put shortest next to the thumb. Is more like a question mark. Like I said, it depends. So back to the illustration, as you can see, I've put those holes, the second hand that I'm about to draw, I've put the holes indicating where the fingers are going to be popping out of. Now, because once you've drawn that palm, it's easier to then draw the fingers. So I usually draw the palm first. Usually. When I'm drawing it in a simple way like this, and looking at it from a very two-dimensional sense, usually yes. So here, have it, notice that we don't get to see a full circle where the fingers are coming out of because the circle is not facing us. And just keep that in mind as we'll get back to that soon. So right now, normally the fingers will be like, if you stretch them out completely, they are going in, you know, very, very different directions. Again, it depends on what you want to do. But for this hand gesture, that's what I'm going for. And this is how it would be if someone wanted to do a high five kind of type deal. This is what it would look like. Again, the middle finger, and I'm having it stretched out to the top. And you just want to make sure that when you're drawing the hands, even if they're separate from each other, you want to make sure that imagine if they were together, you want to make sure that the middle finger is always the tallest one, right? As you can see right there, putting out the lines to let you see even further, it is the tallest one. Again, slightly bent, relaxed hand on the left. Right now is bent and relaxed. Meaning, if this was the finger, if we're looking at the finger right here, and maybe if that was the middle finger, and then this one, you'll think in layers. So it'll be bent again, then that, then this, the index, we won't really see it as much, so it wouldn't really matter. And then what will end up happening is you only see that, and from here you can start rendering. But my point is that it's bent, so we're not seeing the actual height as it's straightened. But this is me getting ahead of myself a little bit, so let me get back on track trying to straighten it out. So here, they're all going to the side, and this is kind of like how it will look then. And you see it's there. This is like the space in between the fingers would then come a little closer. The bones would just come a little closer. And then this, even though it's at the edge here, and it's the shortest, then you can just basically now you're just connecting the dots, and you still have them knowing where they bend, and they're drawing completely. So you have those curves at the fingertips, right? And then it depends on what you want to do with this. But with the thumb, you can put it out here. Basically, if it was straightened, it'll be here. So it'll be here, right here, and it would cover the index finger a little bit. And then you have where it curves, right? For the joints, you never, like I say, you don't want to do the straight line thing. You want to have it curve in some way each time it hits a joint. So here's curve, 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 curve. That's like, this is me in between the fingers, and then here, right? And then you want to have this. There's a lot of we see like the inside of the palm, but it's like almost like the drumstick of the thumb. And you have that here. You have the little curve again, and this curve, maybe it curves in even more because it's coming together. So as it's coming together, it's curved in a little more, stretched apart. It's, I guess, the curve, the tip kind of straightens out a little bit. And if the fingers were out wide, then it will still curve to some degree, but you know, the further away the fingers are from each other, then the straighter the line. But there's still somewhat of a curve for like inside the palm. And so once you start to understand all these things, it'll make you much better at drawing the hand and drawing it freely. So when you start to draw the fist, again from the same angle, we can still do the same thing. So far we've still been thinking about it in a very two-dimensional sense, and we'll do the 3D later. But here you have it this way, and now it's really, if you want to do a closed fist, that means this is going to be as, even though we're not going to see it, but it's just good to know that it'll curve the most, right? Because it's almost like folding within itself, and the big part, almost like the drumstick of the thumb and the little drumstick of the pinky finger, putting that there. And then I'm having, again, they'll be closer, the holes that the fingers will come out of are now closer together, right? Because the fist is not apart. We're trying to do a closed fist. And again, this is still here for where the thumb is going to come out. You don't want to forget to always keep this space, the space in between the index and where the thumb comes out of. And then you have, especially if it's facing us, I guess the arrow kind of facing us, you have to kind of put that together because the finger is folding. We won't really get to see the knuckles as much, but if it's coming out, really, if it's starting to fold, these circles where the fingers come out of wouldn't be as like flat, because right now it looks as if they're facing upwards, but they should be kind of facing us to a degree. So we're kind of entering that three-dimensional realm, and so these holes won't be like that. They will still be close together, but the difference now is it's almost just facing us a little more, right? So then we see the first part of the thumb, not thumb, the index, and then it bends down, and then it bends again, but we don't get to see it, right? We don't get to see it. It bends again over here, but we don't get to see it. This does the same, and the thumb is going to curve down. Not the thumb, sorry, I keep messing it up. But the fingers, as they fold in height, they're coming down a little bit. It depends on how the person is clenching their fist. Sometimes the middle finger kind of goes up a little bit and then it starts to come down. But again, this is just the first part, and by first part I mean, let's call this first part, second, third, which is the tip. So going back to the illustration, we're drawing the first part as it's coming towards us, and then it bends down, and then then it kind of folds within itself. Again, remember it's curving down, so it's going to be shorter. See the first part, second part. The second part is going to be the longest part because that's where we get to see the length of the finger the most, and then it curves within itself. Now another thing is that the fingers don't fold. They don't fold straight. Like, even though you have this, whether the index or the middle finger is higher, it's not too relevant, but like whatever it is, they don't just fold straight. They fold inside. So you have that curve, it's like they fold inside. So here you see the first part, again, it's coming towards us, so we don't get to see the length as much, and then it's folding inside, and now we have that clenched fist, right? And then you can choose to erase, just so we see it better, erase parts of it, but we know it bent around here, bent around here, bent around here, it bent around here again. So even the bending of the fist, like where it goes from first to second, it also curves down. In fact, it curves down a little even further. Now we've not touched the thumb. The thumb is going to at least cover the index finger and the middle finger. So this is coming out towards us even more, and where the thumb pops out of, it's going to be a little more towards us. And because of that, there'll be more folds in the, I guess, drumstick. This is just like the wrist stuff. It kind of pops out at the edges before it comes back down. And then you go 1, 2. Here I'm only covering one part of the fist, one part of the, just covering basically the index finger. But it again depends on how the person is kind of holding your fist. Usually if it's like a punching type fist, it will cover the first 2, meaning it will cover the index finger and the middle finger. And for it to cover the index finger and the middle finger, that the first part of the thumb, again going back just so we see it, to remember, for the thumb only has 2 parts. You got the first and the second. So the second is the tip for the thumb. Then going back to the illustration, you want to maintain its height. Like when people are making movements with your hands, the height, the length of the fingers don't change, right? So you want to make sure it's the same. Sometimes it might look like it's changing depending on how dynamic the illustration is, how it's facing you and stuff like that. But generally, they don't change length. Or unless it's a mutant that's, I don't know, stretches, is a superhero that stretches or something like that. But I'm talking normally. So if we know that we want the thumb, the tip part of the thumb to cover the first 2 fingers, middle finger and index. And again, remember, we're not drawing straight lines. It's mostly curves. It's just curves here. So now we want to get this hole. We want to make sure it matches here. So we're just basically connecting the dots from this point. Now, the more something like the thumb folds on each other. So if this was a finger right here, we have the curve for the joints. Let's say this is the middle finger, and it curves for the joint. If it was going to bend, the curves will be a little more visible. If you then wanted to bend the tip, again, the curves will be more visible. So here, if we're the thickest finger, the thumb, if we're bending it, then the curve will be, at its biggest state. And there'll be more like fold lines and things like that as he's clenching the fist. So here, this is how I'll close a fist. So it's almost like thinking about the illustration in a very 3-dimensional sense. I'm putting the fingernails here. Thinking about the illustration in a very 3-dimensional sense, and thinking about it as if it's a toy that you're bending and manipulating, and you will get whatever pose you want, right? So sometimes, say if you're not going to see, and you can even bend this even further. In fact, just do it one more time. Well, I'll bend it where it's facing downwards even more. And then if you want to see like the back of the hand, so it will be, if it's the same hand, kind of the opposite direction now, I guess. So you want to keep that in mind. But nothing really changes apart from that. So once you understand how to bend the fingers and do all that good stuff, it would be much easier for you to come up with your own poses for the hand. Right now we're only looking at it from a very 2-dimensional sense, so I'm making it very easy. But then once you practice in this state, you can then graduate into doing it in more dynamic poses, which I'll probably save for a completely different video. So you watch this one, then you can go to the next. So here, same thing. You see circle, and the circles are here. If it's a closed fist, then we're seeing it here. If it was open and the hands were pointed up, it would be more like, you know, facing upwards, right? But that's not what we're doing. So even this is not coming at us. Is actually, we can't see it where the hands are actually going to start coming out of, but I'm just showing you where it's going to be. And then I'm just going to draw the knuckles, which is a different thing, which, yeah, I'll just put that in there, right? It's completely different. It's not necessarily different. It's just like, if this is, going back to this hand here, if this was, and again, this is another joint to where, okay, and I see the hand and where the drumsticks would be and stuff like that. If this hand then just bent, even the whole thing went down, then it's basically what we're seeing with the knuckles, where if it starts going down, there's this gap, there's this space here, and that's what kind of what the knuckle is. And as it's doing that, this is how it will be coming down. If it's going up, it's kind of like still doing that, but you know, it's almost like thing holding it together. That's all that is. So once you start thinking of the hand in this way, you can then manipulate it to do whatever you want. So here we have knuckles, some more like bones. Depending on how bony the person is, you can have these lines to just suggest, you know, some bones, or in some cases I've seen people draw some veins over them. But anyway, those are the knuckles. We don't get to see the fingers as much. There's another knuckle, but we don't get to see the fingers as much. Maybe we see a little bit here at the top. Again, it's curving this way, remember. But again, they're coming together. So therefore, if it goes this way, it will come here. This would then go this. They become closer, and this one is almost like it's just going there, right? It wouldn't be just straightforward, unless you were doing like a stylistic thing, right? So you bring it down, so that means it's going up. And these are not just going straight; they are like the fingers are not just bending straight. They're kind of bending towards each other. So that's what was going on here. So it's almost like something like that, and this, and then we see the fist. I'm sorry, the thumb do a thing up there. Yeah, and then the knuckles, which are here. And sometimes to suggest the knuckles, what happens is I've seen artists. Sometimes they will just put two lines right next to each other and maybe draw one down, or sometimes just one line down, or two lines, just to suggest more bone structure underneath the skin, the fist. So if you wanted to do this, if you can do like your open fist and do like more fists like this, relaxed and together. The only way I see you doing something like this, maybe the character is doing like a palm thing, and just real quick so you know what I'm saying, is maybe the character is fighting and then they have some kind of palm move, then the hand will just continue. Like maybe it's a straight thrust. You know what I mean? And it's going this way to hit somebody or something like that. And obviously this hand is facing straight at us, so it doesn't necessarily fit the rest of the arm. We will actually need to tilt this hand a little bit if we want to draw the peace sign. And when that line, so there's actually a curve here and then the curve. So you do one curve and another one. here, and you have that, and then that, and then you have where the hand continues. So there's more space on this side than the other. And we have the drumsticks, and that's that. So these are pointing outwards. So you do your peace sign, and in fact, they're actually you can actually have them close to each other. But if the hands were spread out, then you just change the location of the holes just a little bit. Give space in between the fingers, and then you have it go out. Remember, the middle finger is the tallest one, so you have that. And sometimes with fingers, they don't just go curve, curve, curve. But in between the first and the second, sometimes they kind of curve out, just very little. Just a little bit. Like, they still curve in, but it's weird to explain, and this is where studying and looking at other illustrations of hands come in very handy. Looking at fingers, how they bend, where they bend out, curve outwards, where they curve in, and all that good stuff. But I'm not gonna go into too much detail about that. Everybody's hands people's hands are different, so just, whatever you stick to, it'll be good to be consistent. So you have that, and then this is going this way, so you have this. Remember, it can't be taller than the middle finger for a regular human being, at least. In general, that's the case. So you want to make sure, if you curve away, you want to make sure it's not taller. Like that, and so you have that part done. And if you wanted to do these, that means these are going to be going inwards. Remember, it goes inwards when you close the fist. And then you see a little knuckle, but it's going downwards. So you see a little knuckle, it's a little knuckle. The hole then becomes, it's more, we get to see the top of the holes where the fingers come out of a whole lot better. So then from there, we see the first part, the second part. We don't get to see the third part as much because it's blocked. These fingers are now closer to each other. It's a closed. This part of the fingers acting like a closed fist. So then we see the first part, second part. We don't get to see the last part because it's behind. And then, so automatically when you then connect these dots, and if you do that, and there'll be more fold here actually. As I go forward, I'll be adding more nuances that maybe I didn't have in the first illustrations. But here, and then that hand will curve, because at least this part's curving in, so this line here is going to be, it's not going to be so straight, it's going to curve more. But now this finger, the thumb, is going to just go over here, so we get to see a whole lot more of where it's going to pop out of. And you can just skip and just put where the tip of the thumb is going to be, show a little bit side view of the fingernails, and then connect the dots. Now because it's bending and we get to see it from an almost profile view, we get to see more curve at the touch, at the area of touch. So this is almost like two, right? Doing two things. It's almost like a closed fist and not. Now this will still go over. So you think of it in layers. Think of it as a toy that you're manipulating to get what you want. And over time, you wouldn't need to reconstruct the hand each time you want to draw a hand. We can pull this hand, the pinky finger back out if we want. That will change things, obviously. So let's try that. And it'll be going this way. Remember, it's the shortest. And we're judging that based off of when the middle finger is straightened to the fullest. So it wouldn't pass around here. have that and that. Where it curves, where it bends. Now we don't automatically go treating the hole like it's almost flat, because this hand, it's bending this way, so we get to see the hole of where it comes out of, where the pinky comes out of. So basically the tip of the hand when it's bending, like the top of it without the fingers, it's kind of like this. The top is kind of flat. But when the hand is bending or about to do a clench a fist, then we get to see it in a more dynamic sense. Right? In this case, when it bends, this part is more bent than this part. So when we're looking at where the hole of the fingers are coming out of, see here, 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 here. And this is where you start going into, you know, more dynamic stuff. But if it was just a regular clenched fist, then the top of it would look more like this, where we then get to see the holes even more. And that circular line gets to dictate how the folds look. So here, the folds are curving down. Right? We get to see like almost like a U shape when we do stuff like this. So we got to see the U shape here, just a little, because the hand is kind of curving like this. This finger, like the pinky finger, is the weakest, so it even though it was popping out, its movement was dictated by this one. This is the middle and this is the index. So it was dictated by this one, so we got to see a little more than, you know, we needed to, and therefore we saw that somewhat U shape. But for, say, the index finger, we still see a little bit of a U shape, but it's not as, I guess, it's not as U as this one. And these lines here also help dictate how you draw, say, how you draw the folds of the hand. Now if we have this bend and it was bending in a way where we don't get to see it as much, where these are the holes, but they are on, like, it's basically facing away from us, and in that case we don't get to see it. And then instead of a U shape, it's more of an N shape. The fingers is doing what they want. The drumstick, it's going away. It's more of an N shape this time, and that kind of has to do with perspective a little bit, foreshortening a little bit, and all sorts of stuff. It's almost like we're looking at the hand from below, kind of. So that's kind of what that is. And when you know how to construct the hand at this level, knowing where it bends, how it bends, knowing where it curves, how it curves, the little simple nuances, the heights of the fingers, and make sure you're maintaining them, and how they can change. They may be deceiving in how they change height because of the angle you're looking at them from. So this will be the last one I do for this video. Gonna reconstruct this hand to do something else. Probably should have drawn a new one. But if we saw the top where they're coming out, where the fingers were popping out of, again, you see this curve, it's popping out. Then, if we saw the top, so I'm going to bend the fingers a little more. So draw the first one, and maybe it's coming at us a little more. And then, see, this was actually, let's say this was the height of the fingers, but we're not using that. And then this second part kind of looks shorter, but it only looks shorter because it's bending towards us. And because it's bending towards us, we get to see that U shape. And then I'll just do, maybe we're only seeing the fingertip. Or we're seeing the fingertip in such a way where we get to see the top of the fingers just a tiny. And remember, most of these lines are curves, right? So you do the same thing, and this part looks shorter than it usually would be, but then here, and maybe this time it's bent in such a way where we don't see the fingertips. Because it's bending towards us, actually, we get to see more of the top, more of the hole where the fingers are popping out of. And just give them some kind of orientation to where they're more facing towards this side and not being 100% directly at us. So you have that. You do this. This side. And then the pinky finger is the smallest. Don't be afraid to overlap. If we did it like this, that just means it's really the pinky finger is actually closest to us the most. So it looks like it bends just once, but it's actually bending 3 times. And then this one, maybe we do that, and then just the second one, because remember, this is the thumb, only bending twice, and then that's that. Maybe bend this even further in the left direction. And maybe we do see a little bit of a fingernail at the top. And don't be afraid to like sometimes fingers will overlap with each other. So let's say the pinky was going a little more into this side. Don't be afraid to have them overlap. So because the pinky, how it is right now, we get to see the least, even though it's the shortest, we see the least of it because it's more towards us than anything else. Then if it was more to the other, if it was more drawn more to the left, then it will overlap and block one of the fingers. So you do 1, 2, 1. Then we don't get to see the second part as much. And then that. Now it looks very robotic, weird. So I can just go in and make things look a little more organic. So right now I'm drawing it from imagination, and I'm just, doing whatever I feel is appropriate. Going in, going back, editing where I feel necessary. Here I didn't draw. You need to, even though I'm drawing the curves and everything, but then there's a little pop here to show the knuckles for the thumb. So that does that. And there you have it. And then you can keep manipulating and drawing, and like once you know how to draw the hand in this sense, where you are kind of not necessarily making it up as you go, but you are just messing with the hand and moving it, constructing it in your head as you're putting it together, thinking of it in layers and thinking of it in a three-dimensional sense, even though you're looking at it two-dimensionally, you can come up with some pretty interesting hand poses. So you have the curve. You want to start with, you can always do this if you need to. That with the drumstick of it. This one is more connected to the pinky finger, but so it's going to be a little higher, and this one's connected to the thumb, so it's going to be a little lower, but thicker and bigger. So you have that, have the line in the middle. So you see curve here, curve, and then you got a finger, and that's that. So now let's do something more like a crouching tiger kind of fist, and or at least pose. Sorry. So I draw the first part, and I draw the second part. Done. Remember, this is going down, right? And since the fingers are kind of, we're going to get to see fingernails in this one, so I'll have it. We get to see a little more of the whole than usual. But again, it's a curve. So you have that one. So we see these. They wouldn't be as tall as they would be if they were just stretching out. So because they're bending towards us, the height is deceiving us and is being shorter, looking shorter than it actually is because perspective. Here and here. Now it depends on how you want the hands to be, the fingers to be popping out. I'm kind of doing something where they're still close to each other, but I think we did that last time. Let's do one where they're separate. They're really going in, you know, in random directions. So it's like here. They're not close to each other in this one. So here. So that means the lines go here, 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 and here. Then we get to see the second part. Second part will be facing us directly, and then you see the third part with the tip. And then draw fingernails. For fingernails, sometimes if this was the finger, some people draw fingernails just this, and that's that. I've seen people draw fingernails, maybe they come out a little more. Sometimes they go into more detail and put extra lines in there. I've seen fingernails where they just, the line work is actually not complete at all. It's just like that. So it's up to you, whatever style you have for putting in the fingernails. I kind of use all three, it depends. And then, so here we can just basically draw where it bends. We don't need to draw the first and the second, so we can just skip it and draw where it bends. This is what happens when you do it enough times, then you know exactly what's going to happen. But sometimes you may want to draw the whole thing if you just want to know what's going on. So even though we see where it bends, we get to see the first part a little bit. And again, just to remind you, this is the first, this is the second, third, and tip. That's what I'm talking about. And for thumbs, there are only two. 2, 1, until 2 has the tip. And the more bent it is, the more curvy if we're seeing it from our side. And then here, because it's the pinky, come down low. So maybe we get to see a little bit of the second here. It kind of just depends on how you want you want this, you want this to go, how you want this to bend. It's completely up to you. And in fact, I'm going to have this bend a little further down so we get to see a little more of it, and therefore I'll bend that a little more, and then that happens. Right? Maybe we bend this one a little more. Here I'm actually bringing the fingers back out. I forgot I wanted them really scattered. So if we're scattered, then this will happen. And then you want to remember that you're drawing the pinky, so it's just remember that, okay, that finger is small. It's the smallest one. Here. When I'm drawing fingernails, if the finger is pointing at you, I have this, again, a little bit of that N shape if we get to see it. But if the finger is facing downwards, then it's more of that U shape. And if it's really, really facing downwards, I just draw it at the line. And if it's facing upwards, we don't see it at all, right? So this is right. This right here is kind of what we're doing now. This is maybe then you get to see the second part a little bit more. Because remember, people don't always bend their hands the exact same. It's all scattered. So you can just keep messing with it until you get what you want. So I'll do one more. I'll do something else. Where it's all bending at different times. So you have that. And now I'm kind of going away from the typical drawing, putting all the line work there. So you have there. So draw a bend. And so even though this is the middle finger, it looks like it's the shortest, but that's only because it's basically stretched out more than the index. Here, that. And then the pinky, I'm actually going to have that bend the most. There. And in fact, we're not going to see anything with this. And let's have the thumb actually stretch out and almost bend backwards. See that? And this is how you just keep manipulating the hands until you get what you want. One cool thing is usually, let's say this is the arm. There's a joint here, so then you bend. Let's say you bend the hand. So if I want to look at this hand from the side, we would see the little drum for the pinky, and then the big drum for thumb, right? And this part is, the part that actually curves. Right, so here's where the fingers are actually coming out of. Right, so this is more like looking from below, not exactly a side view. Let's make that thicker. Okay, side view, and then that right there is the thumb. For the pinky, you draw 1, you break it down, 2, 3. That's pinky. And then for 3, for it's not the middle finger or the index one, but the one closest to the pinky, draw 1, 2. So one thing is, let's say you would draw the finger, just draw one side as it's bending first, and then put in the other part. This way you can draw over. This way you can draw over fingers much easier. So here I have drawn the one closest to the pinky, but I haven't finished it. And then the now I'm drawing the middle finger one. I haven't finished it. And you know what? Let's say I want the index to do kind of opposite of what the others are doing, and so I'll do like this, and it's already blocked by everything else, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. And I just finish it up. Not finish it up. And then maybe I can draw the index doing what it was actually doing. Right? It's a weird pose, but it's a very possible pose for a hand. This is the angle thing, and this. The knuckles are here. So there you go. There you have it. For something more side view, right? This is where the drums would be. This is the part in between the drums and the knuckles, and these are the knuckles, and then the fingers are coming out here, right? So, and let's say here we get to see a little more the top side of the hand, top and bottom part. So we see some knuckles, because remember it's not just straight, it's curved like this. So meaning we see knuckles, knuckle, 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 hand, finger, 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 and finger. Hopefully that made sense. So now I'll draw the pinky. 1, 2, 3. The other one closest to the pinky. 1, 2, 3. Middle finger. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm just drawing the top line, and then the index finger. 1, 2, 3. And now let's finish it up. Remember, the middle finger is the tallest, so you want to keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to make sure it's longer than everything else. And the pinky is the shortest, so make sure that's shorter than everything else. And then middle finger, then index here. So where's the thumb? The thumb is not necessarily on the same plane exactly as with them. So even though this is the drum for the one. You can call it the drumstick for the one attached to the pinky. Let's pull down the drum closer, or the drum attached to the thumb, and so it'll just be an extra line. This is the drum right here, right? And that's closest to the index finger. So that's actually more like this, and then it's gonna come out from here, and then draw 1, 2, and I don't really know exactly what's doing, but that's basically the thumb. And just to differentiate and add value to it, I'm just gonna shade that part because it's below. Like if there was a light source coming from here, we wouldn't see it as much. You know, that's kind of like a dynamic hand gesture. I'm just gonna put in the just lines, just to make everything feel more organic, and putting in the fingernails. And that was that. This is kind of side view stuff, right? If we had a palm, so have that. In fact, for a change, well, okay, I'll do it for the other side in the next one. So this is the drum, the part before the drum, and then I'll connect it to the pinky. It's 1, 2, 3. The finger closest to the pinky. 1, 2, 3. Again, so even though this is a palm hand, I'm not actually having it be straight. I could have, but I'm not. And then the middle finger. 1, 2, 3. And they're close together because they're almost on the same plane. And you know what? In this one, I'm not going to show the index finger because it's completely blocked. So you only show it if you really want to. So maybe it's doing something weird like this. But I don't even want to show it. I'm assuming that it's blocked. And then you just an extra line for the drum of the thumb. It depends on the hand gesture. It depends on what pose you want. So in some cases, the thumb will also be blocked. Either part of it or all of it. It's kind of up to you. So let's draw from the second part. Draw from a different angle. Here. So this is the thrust. Let's do something where here, obviously this is drum 1 in between the first drum and the fingers. But this is let's make it look like it's coming out a little bit. And that's the drum connected to the thumb. Obviously the fingers are coming out here. So let's do a little more dynamic stuff here. Pinky finger. So draw the top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1. And let's say it's doing some completely different. 2, 3. Almost bending backwards in a way. Right? And you know what? The index finger is still blocked. You can draw some lines here to just suggest the knuckles. But you know what? I could bring that index even forward and act like it did happen. So let's do 1, 2, 3. So we get to see the parts we want. Obviously this is the index. I'm just putting that to different shape. Also when you put the fingernails, that could also help make things clearer to see for viewers. Since it's curving so much, that curve in between the parts is not going to show as much. Get the fingernail right there. If you want to draw a character with a long fingernail, you can do that. And then for the thumb, let's have it bend towards us. And that's that. It's a weird hand pose, but still a pose. Yeah. Pose nonetheless. And these are just side view stuff, and you can just keep working at it until you get what you want. Right? If we wanted to draw a straight hand, like it's a complete straight thrust, then you only have to focus just a tiny. So this is the line for the pinky. This is the line for the one close to the pinky. This is the line for the one for the middle finger, and we'll barely see the index here. This is in between the drum and the fingers. This is the drum. put the drum for the thumb, and the thumb will be on a different plane. But here, wait for your fingers. And that's that. And then, in fact, the hands could, maybe the character's bending it in a weird way. And that's that. So you can do a lot of stuff sideways, drawing it from a side view. Then if you wanted to make it a little more dynamic, where it's side view but in an angle, kind of like the first one we drew, except the angle is a little bit from beneath. So if you want to draw one, and this one's is slightly from above, but once you understand these, you can just keep working at drawing fists and you get better at it. So if it was more like the hand was going away, you can draw this line, show the knuckles. We're just kind of seeing it from the top. This knuckle for the thumb. And then you can now make the fingers do whatever you want, but remember, you're kind of going on a weird perspective here. So you can do a fist, and right now is kind of right. If you want to do, you can have the fingers pop out. And so you see the thumb looks very, very short, but that's because it's pointing away and I'm keeping the perspective in mind, right? If you're thrusting, the fingers are all thrusting that in that direction, then you want to keep the perspective in mind as well. And you can kind of have a guide sometimes. And that's that. So it's almost like Superman flying, and maybe the thumb is actually more close together with the rest of them. I guess you barely get to see it. And then that's that, flying away, right, in that direction. If you wanted to draw a fist coming at you, so here's you have that curve, knuckle, 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 have a line, 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 line. Remember, these are coming in. Pinky finger right here is usually like a little pop right here. Don't forget the pop, it's right here. But there's that. Is actually curving away as well. And then that's kind of like the front face of your fist. And you can have some lines again to just emphasize a little more on the knuckles. So the index finger is kind of overlapping on the middle finger just a little bit. And then the last two, pinky and the one in between pinky and middle, again, they have that curve. The middle finger, actually, the index, the curve is actually a little more like that. But the one at the top with the knuckles, even the knuckles, I guess, because the middle finger's knuckles would be the tallest. So it's actually more like a round little curve. But the fingers are closing in to each other. They're not straight, right? And then you get this hand, you drew a line here, and because basically you want that thumb to, the thumb is the fingers are overlapping with the thumb, right? It depends. So sometimes some people draw the thumb and just put like that, and that's not really, and maybe put the fingernail. That's not really correct. It's actually hard to pull off and not so comfortable in real life to have a hand with this look. So it's actually behind the fingers just a little, covering the index and the middle finger, like so. And then it's the front face of the thumb is not facing you directly. It's kind of facing you slash the bottom just a little bit. So just put the fingernails to emphasize that, right? And then that's that. Sometimes you will see the drum of, at least drum connecting to the pinky a little bit over there. See some lines, fold lines, depends. Some shadows maybe, depends. And this is kind of like a fist coming at you, right? It's not going to be straight on in like that, right? It's almost curved a little bit forward, going forward, forward, forward. This is the middle finger, so it'll be the biggest one. The index is right there, so this is the middle finger, and then the last pinky curve. So 1, 2, 3. Sometimes 1, 2, and 3. And then you do that. And so just 1, 2, 3 to cover up. That cover up. Cover up. And this is the in between the drum and fingers. So we see the drum. And then we see the fingers, the thumbnail, not the thumbnail. Sorry, just the thumb. And so put the fingernails just to say it should let you see that it's facing us a little bit, right? Meaning that the drum of the connecting thumbs kind of just going to do like this, and then I have just the shadows just to let you know it's underneath, and that's that. Right? If you have a character, say this is his head, eye, and he's trying to, this is like a shot of him about to punch. See the shoulders here, maybe a little chest. Because of foreshortening, you know the fist is going to be around here, you know the thumb's going to be here, and then you can just connect the dots. And that's kind of it. You know, and then you just put more lines to make it feel a little more organic. So one quick way sometimes is I'll just do that, put together, I'll do that, and I'll just draw. Once I've done that, and then I draw the thumb, and that's that. I kind of do a line 1 and then 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Again, there's a little overlap. Knuckle, knuckle, knuckle. Little pop. Middle finger knuckle is the biggest. And boom. Fingernail. Maybe you see a little drum. And that's that. Hands are actually one of the funnest things for me to draw. I hope this video helps you construct hands in whatever pose or gesture you feel necessary for your illustration or comic or whatever. I hope this drawing, this video, this tutorial helped you in some way in understanding the hand, and how to put it together, because those are the first steps in moving forward in learning how to draw hands full time. Please like this video, leave a comment if you have any questions. Don't forget to hit that bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything, and don't forget to hit subscribe. All these things help this video, help this channel a great deal. My videos are usually not this long, but if you did watch the video to the end, that helps a great deal, and I like to thank you for that. And hopefully you got what you want out of it. For those who don't know me, I'm the creator of Apple Black, published and serialized in Saturday AM. You can read the first 4 chapters of Apple Black free on our website, or you can check out the Saturday AM magazine. Links to everything you could possibly need will be in the description below. You can also check out my social media if you want to reach out to me in that way. That's absolutely fine. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Whyt Manga, and I'm out.